The following program is for mature audiences only. Football talk shows, most of them sound like this. Blah, 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 blah. Not this one. That's because it features the former director of college scouting with the Chicago Bears. He worked on the staff that drafted, the likes of Devin Hester, Olin Kreutz, Lance Briggs. He's the man who takes shit from absolutely nobody. He's Greg Gabriel. Gabriel joins longtime Chicago sports reporter David Schuster. And this is, accordingly, Gabriel Schuster Talk Bears.
And welcome once again into the Gabriel Schuster podcast. I'm David Schuster, that handsome man right to my right. On the screen here is Mr. Greg Gabriel. And as always, in the second of our two podcasts here on the Gabriel Schuster podcast each week, we preview the Bears' next game, which is coming up. And I cross my fingers on this, Greg, hopefully Sunday at Soldier Field. We'll tell you why in just a moment. Hopefully, the Houston Texans are scheduled to be at Soldier Field noon. You can see it on the screen. It'll be broadcast on CBS. We'll also obviously discuss the Bears' current plight, which is a 6-game losing skid. And we'll ask Greg what he would do if his last name was McCaskey. But before anything else, Greg, the news just broke within the last hour that one of the Bears players has tested positive. And one of the I don't know if I'd say everyday players, but one of the players that's normally on the roster has tested positive for COVID. And so they've closed the facilities, as you see on the screen here right now. They've closed the facilities up at Hallis Hall. They'll be doing everything, at least during the day, virtually. And they will try, if everything goes well, and who knows, they'll try and have a walkthrough at Hallis Hall maybe later this evening. But for right now, if nothing else, I guess there's at least a question mark what's going to happen here going forward.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me based on what's been going on around the league that this game gets pushed back to Monday or Tuesday. Again, it has to do with the contact tracing, how many people test positive, that type of thing. We'll just have to see what happens. Obviously something we got no control over.
Yeah, of course not. We don't know who that player is, but we'll have a pretty good idea by the end of the day because they have to put whoever that player is on the COVID list.
Right.
So we'll have an idea who that player is by the end of the day. Again, I want to talk about so many things here today. We're going to hear from Mitch Trubisky. We're going to hear from Deshaun Watson. Obviously, that's a theme of this game going into Sunday's contest. Again, hopefully they play on Sunday. We also want to talk about what's going on with the Bears overall, Greg, because they have lost 6 games in a row. But usually on our second podcast of the week, we talk about the upcoming opponent. So I'd like to start right there. Houston comes into this game 4-8. They've had a crazy season themselves. They fired Bill O'Brien very early in the season after, they hadn't won a game. I think they were, 0-4, 0-5 at that point.
Yeah, they're basically a mutiny. Those guys, the players wouldn't play for Bill O'Brien.
Yeah.
And then they brought back Romeo Cornell. Romeo is really a good guy. I worked with Romeo for a number of years in New York. He's an excellent coach, been around the league forever. And they'll play for him. There's speculation that he's got a shot at the head job to be the permanent head coach. I think Romeo's 73 or 74. I don't know if he'd really want that.
Yeah, that's what you said earlier in the season, that maybe he's too long in the tooth to really want. Although, egos, sometimes win out, and maybe he does. Who knows? But anyway, Houston comes into this game at 4-8. Deshaun Watson is the Houston Texans for the most part on offense. 69% completion ratio, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, a QB rating of 104 or 105, something like that. Anyway, and we're going to put up a little bit later on a graphic showing what happened in the 2017 draft. And obviously that was a big theme of what happened in the draft. Why? Because it's topical. That's
what here's what it is. You can't do revisionist history, though. It is what it is. The Bears took their guy. Houston took their guy. Kansas City took their guy. You can't change it. You can't go around and with the what ifs. All that is fantasy football.
Okay, Greg, I'm going to tell you something. You would never make it in the World Wrestling Federation because, it's more than just what goes on in the ring or on the field. It's all promotion and marketing and everything else. And so you have to talk about these things. And obviously, it's a theme of Sunday's game. So we will talk about that. But again, right now we're talking about the Texans. Watson has had yet another very good season for him. They don't really run the football all that much. David Johnson leads them in 452 yards. Watson is actually second on the team with 331 yards. So
right.
His athletic abilities do come to the forefront.
No question. He's a very athletic quarterback. The big question, if you can go back to that draft, they use a radar gun at the combine to measure arm strength. Miles per hour that the ball's traveling. And the throws that he did came in low. And so there was a lot of so-called experts questioning his arm strength. It was all horseshit, because number one, you don't know if he was throwing the ball as hard as he could throw the ball, given those circumstances. But he's got plenty of arm strength. He's done an excellent job. He's already had his contract restructured going forward. He is going to be the focus of the Houston Texans going forward. Very good player in the league. He's the guy I originally thought, that the Bears were going to take. Obviously, they thought different. They took Mitchell Trubisky.
Okay, well, the thing that I liked about Watson, the thing that everybody liked about Watson was that he was a winner already on the collegiate level. One of the many knocks against Trubisky coming into the pros is that, he didn't win that much because he didn't play that much, Greg.
No, he was a one-year starter, and then he had some other starts periodically throughout his career, but basically a one-year starter at North Carolina.
Yeah, so it was the ultimate gamble on Ryan Pace's part.
There was. There's this old adage. This goes way back to when I began scouting, and Bill Parcells who I worked with was a big believer in this. That you wanted your quarterbacks to have 3 years of start like 30 games, 27 to 30 games. Throw 900 passes. And now in today's offense, the 900 passes, hell, you get that in a year and a half to 2 years. But that type of thing, so you had the experience. Well, Trubisky never hit those parameters. And again, those were done, those parameters were set 30 years ago, and offenses have changed. But still, it's the amount of time that you start on the field, the play time that you get. And he had, of all the quarterbacks, the good quarterbacks in that draft, and Mahomes obviously is the other and has turned out to be the best, he had the least amount of starts, the least amount of play time.
Yeah, well, again, ultimate gamble, and I think ultimately it's going to eventually get him fired, but we'll see. Wide receivers for Houston, Brandon Cook leads them with 57. Will Fuller right behind 53, but Fuller's the guy who gets into the end zone. He's got 8 touchdowns on the season.
Fuller is no longer on the team.
Oh, I'm sorry. Then I made a mistake.
Fuller was suspended for 6 games for PED use a week ago. Last week was the first. His suspension carries over into the 2021 season. He will miss the first game of the 2021 season.
Okay, my fault on that one. I forgot all about that. All right, defensively, Zach Cunningham, he's having what looks to be an all-pro season. He's got 119 tackles from the linebacker position. What's really interesting, Greg, about their linebackers, they must blitz a lot because they have 28 sacks for the defense. J.J. Watt, of course, leads them with 5, but their linebackers combined have, I think, 9 or 10 quarterback sacks. So they must do a lot of blitzing.
No, they do. And they're sending people all the time and sending them from different directions. The offensive line has really got to be ready for this game. Now, granted, the line has played, we got to give some credit here. The line has played better the last 2 weeks. They had a costly sack. Excuse me, I got something in my throat. They had a costly sack at the end of the game last week that ended up costing the Bears the game because Trubisky fumbled on it. But all told, the line has played better, and they got to continue going in that direction to even have a chance this week.
All right, continuing on with the defense for the Texans. They've only got 8 turnovers for the entire season. Obviously, that's a low number. And, Greg, only 3 interceptions in 12 games. I mean, this just once again falls into my category. Look for the damn football.
Right. Vernon Hargraves has one. J.J. Watt has one. And who the hell has the other one? Way down the line. I don't even see who's got the other one.
I don't know. But again, 3 interceptions. That just blows me away. Their kicker, for what it's worth, Kaimi Fairburn, I think is his name. 20 of 24 for what little that's worth.
Right. Now, I'll tell you, what's one of the keys to this game is the weather. And I don't know what the forecast was, but I know that earlier in the week, yesterday, the day before, the forecast for Saturday was wet snow.
Yeah.
Sunday, who knows? I think cold weather, low 30s, high 20s. You got a team from Texas, dome team, coming up here. That can be difficult to make that adjustment. Just the fact that what would be an advantage for the Bears is just a few snowflakes even fall.
Yeah, there is supposed to be precipitation, whether it's rain and or snow, both Friday and Saturday. But Sunday, I think at least as of right now, and I don't trust the weather guy. I'm going to be 100%. I just don't. Supposedly Sunday it's going to clear out and be cold, like you said. So we'll just have to wait and see. All right, again, whether you like it or not, one of the themes of this game on Sunday, and Aldo's going to put a graphic up on the screen here, is the fact that Trubisky and Watson will both be on the field. And there you can see the graphic. There you see the first 3 quarterbacks were taken in the 2017 draft. And you know what, Greg, if you take a look at Trubisky's numbers overall, they're not horrible. They're not horrible at all, but they pale in comparison to the 2 guys who were picked further down in the first round, who the Bears failed, to draft. And if I remember correctly, Watson, the first time he was interviewed, said, well, the Bears had a conversation with him, but he could tell real quickly that they were not interested in his services.
I remember when they were going through the pre-draft process there, and actually at the Watson Pro Day, they sent everybody. So John Fox went, Mark Sadowski went, Ryan Pace went. They had the offense coordinator. Everybody was there, and so a lot of people thought they were making a big deal of it. Now, a few days later or a couple of weeks later, they had a very private workout that nobody knew about with Mitchell Trubisky. Excuse me. The guy that I don't even think they worked out was Patrick Mahomes, which to me, there's no excuse for that.
No excuse whatsoever. All right. Well, listen, let's hear from Mitch Trubisky here, because obviously there's been so much conversation over time that about Mahomes and about Watson and, why didn't the Bears take him? Is Mitch Trubisky sick and tired of hearing all this conversation?
No, it's not. Because you kind of said it yourself. Like I don't control that narrative. I don't control what people say about it, but it is always going to be a story just because that's the draft class we came in. It was me, Deshaun, and Pat, and we were picked where we were, and now it's up to us to make the most out of our opportunities, and they've done a great job with theirs, and I'm still trying to write my story here. So that's all there is to it, and my opportunity is to go out and lead my team this week and try to get a win, and I'm excited about that. But I'm also happy for their success as well, because obviously they've earned it.
Yeah, my guess here is that his story will not be much longer in a Bears uniform. He'll latch on with another team. There's no question. He'll get another opportunity, and who knows, maybe the fresh landscape will serve him well. But I think his days in Chicago are numbered.
I agree with you, and we've said it a number of times. The big difference between him and Mahomes and Deshaun Walker is the ability to process and instincts. And those guys make great decisions, make very quick decisions, are accurate, where Mitch has very inconsistent accuracy, locks onto one receiver, did a little better job last week, but you got to do it more in one game.
All right, let's hear from Watson now, because obviously, as we alluded, he was bypassed for the Bears. I think he went into a better situation overall for him, and he's had a very good, albeit a short career so far. He's been very successful down in Houston. Anyway, he was asked if he's extra motivated going against the Bears this Sunday because they passed him up in the draft.
It's no motivation. That's what the organization went with. I had no ties, nothing against the Chicago Bears or the organization. I mean, of course, the media is going to make stories. And like you said, for those fans, they're going to, of course, say something about it. But, for me personally, that's no motivation and nothing like that. They did what they did and just keep pushing forward, and they thought that was the, best situation for themselves at that time. So for me, it was just no motivation.
It's funny. I never thought Clemson would be the quarterback capital of collegiate football, but obviously with him and now Trevor Lawrence and then the kid who's right behind him,
right?
All of a sudden, that's become quarterback factory.
Sure is. And I get what Watson was saying there. It's like, why are we even talking about this? Like I said earlier in the show, this was 4 years ago. Okay, if you want to make a big deal out of it 2 years ago, okay, but now it's like, hey, it is what it is. You can't change it. The Bears screwed up. They took the wrong guy. And to keep putting stuff on the fire, wood on the fire, does no good.
Yeah, but again, it makes for conversation and it makes for marketing of the game. That's just the way it is. Not only
it's not going to put one more fan in the stands because there aren't any.
Well, there's no fans in the stands anyway.
So.
All right. Well,
and the games are sold out. Were sold out to begin with. So, I just think, I'm looking at it realistically. I get it. People want to talk about it. Maybe some fans want to hear about it. But all it does is open up wounds that are already there.
Okay, you're right about that. But guess what? It's ultimately when a general manager makes the decision that he made that night. He put his job on the line, and
I said that the day he did. He did it really twice. He attached his career to the picking of Mitch Trubisky and the selection of Matt Nagy as the head coach. That's pure and simple. And if they all fail, then he failed.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about another subject that's been prevalent at least the last couple of weeks. And Aldo will put this graphic up on the screen as well. The defense, and you're the one who's been pointing this out the last couple of weeks, Greg. I mean, the defense has gone south. It's dropped like a rock in water. That's the old graphic. We're going to take a look at the defensive graphic. There we go. The defensive graphic is now up on the screen. And Greg, the last couple of weeks, first against the Packers and then against the Lions, they've given up 5 touchdowns in each of the 2 games after they were stellar. I mean, who knows? Maybe they just finally ran out of gas or patience with the offense. I'm not really sure, although the offense has actually picked up the last couple of weeks. Now, what are your overall thoughts? And I know Aldo's going to put up all 10 of those touchdowns as a video part of on the screen here very shortly. What do you think has gone on over the last couple of weeks?
I can't answer that. For some reason, it may be that the opposing offensive coordinators have in film study of the Bears have seen flaws in the defense and are attacking those flaws. Now we've talked about one, and that's Buster Skrine at the slot corner. He's a weak link in the secondary, but Khalil Mack has been hurt. He's not playing as well. You're not getting pressure from the other side at all. Akeem Hicks missed the Green Bay game. Probably wasn't close to being 100% last week against Detroit. You already lost Eddie Goldman, and Roy Robertson Harris has been gone for, 5 weeks. So you're playing with a backup defensive line. I think when you look at all those things, that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, we're watching all 10 of those touchdowns over the last couple of weeks. And, a lot of them are in the air. A lot of them are on the ground. A lot of them were in the red zone. A lot of them were deep passes.
There's a shitload. There's a lot going on, and it's all breakdowns.
Yeah, it sure is. And Chuck Pagano, listen, he's the defensive coordinator. He deserves to be questioned at the very least about what's going on with his defense the last couple.
No question. No, I mean, no, he doesn't get a pass. They have played poorly. Put it this way, if the defense plays better in those 2 games, the Bears probably win last week, and the game against Green Bay is closer.
Yeah, now I don't know what's going to happen at Hallis Hall later today, and we started this podcast by telling everybody that there has been a player who tested positive on the Bears roster. So they've closed down all activities at Hallis Hall, and they're doing all their virtual meetings virtually today. And, if they get the go-ahead maybe later today, they might have some kind of walkthrough later this evening at Hallis Hall. But, I don't even know.
I think that's high, based on what's going on with other things, highly unlikely. I think the earliest you're going to see anything happen at Hallis Hall's, I don't even know if tomorrow, Saturday.
Well, that really puts, the Bears up against it. It'll be beyond a short practice week then. Who knows? Other teams have had to go through it. They haven't. Yeah. They've been lucky in that area. That's what the status quo is in 2020, with COVID. And the league is very, very strict with their protocol. And if you got a guy test positive, they do all the contact tracing. They want to make sure that it's just an individual case and not a whole team. It could very well turn out that you get 5 or 6 guys that go on that COVID list over this thing. And if you recall, go back earlier in the week, there's a couple practice squad guys that got put on the COVID list. And that's probably where it started. Sure, it's on the screen right now. LaCale London, Manti, I can't even say his name.
Manti-Te'o.
Yeah, the guy who played at Notre Dame, and Thomas Ives. They were the ones who all tested positive. And yes, it's very likely that whoever is tested positive on the active roster probably got it from those guys. We don't know for sure.
Yeah, but it's probably a pretty fair assumption.
Yeah, so it's possible, at least possible, that the Bears could go into Sunday's game with a very shortened practice week. But I always remember Allen Iverson on the Philadelphia 76ers, who used to hate practice, goes, I don't need any practice. And then Ben Roethlisberger, he was on the COVID list earlier this season. He didn't practice at all, Greg, and he threw 4 touchdown passes in the game on Sunday. So
there's teams that have been through this and played pretty damn well on Sunday.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. All right, listen, one of the other things I talked about right at the top here, I said I'm going to put you on the spot, and we changed your last name from Gabriel to McCaskey. Okay, and we've elevated you.
The only thing that's good about that is both are Irish. But otherwise, I don't want to be in that position because why? I'll tell you why. I don't know everything about the situation to give a fair answer. And I'm not trying to cop out here. There's a lot involved in this. And when you're inside the building, you know what's going on. But when you're outside looking in, there's a lot of things you don't know.
Well, that's true. I mean, obviously, you're not in Hallis Hall every day now. You're not there at all, to be honest with you right now. So you don't know what's going on behind closed doors and all that stuff. But you're a quote unquote football expert. That's why we're doing this. And even from afar, if you see what's going on right now, and this franchise has lost 6 games in a row, they don't have a quarterback on this roster. I'm sorry. Trubisky's not going to be here next year. Foles will still be your backup, or at least should be your backup next year. Their offensive line is in tatters for a litany of reasons, and it hasn't been good, honestly, during his whole time here. So I'm putting you on the spot here, Greg Gabriel. If you're in charge of everything, what are you doing with either the general manager, the coach, the roster? What are you doing?
You're sitting down with them, and you're probably not sitting down with them until 4 weeks from now at the end of the season. And you want answers, and you want to know what the plan is going forward. And then he's going to have to make a decision. Excuse me. Do I accept this plan, or do I want to move on and bring somebody else in? Having been part of that organization for close to 10 years, I think these guys each got 2 years left on their contract. Not that matters, but my gut feeling is they're going to get 1 more year.
Yeah, that's my gut feeling also, and that scares the heck out of me because
it could be a wasted year. So I mean,
Yeah, I mean, here's a general manager who said he was going to draft a quarterback every year. He obviously hasn't done that, and when he has finally looked to get a quarterback on his roster, the 2 that are on this roster right now, neither one of them, you're not going to win with either one of them in the short or long run. You're just not.
No, and you've got I don't care who the GM is next year. If it's Ryan Pace or it's somebody else, you got cap problems. And, there's not a lot of money available. You don't know what the cap's going to be. Now, there's been talk recently, and similar to when we had Mike McCartney on the show as a guest, that the cap's going to remain flat, and it's going to be about the same next year as it was this year. And if that's the case, the Bears are going to have more money. But there's some dead wood there that they're going to have to get rid of to clear out space and be able to go out and get some players. And
all right, Aldo's running something on the screen here at the bottom, and it says in the 21 years with the Bears, Ted Phillips, and he hasn't been the team president all those 21 years, but a majority of them he has. The Bears have only made the playoffs 5 times. You obviously worked under Ted Phillips, so you have more of an opinion on this alone. The Bears, when they have him as a team president, he's more a team president for finance, not really for football. Is that in itself that the Bears organization makes a mistake at? Should they have somebody who should be the team president who oversees everything, including the football operation, football decisions? Because that's not what Ted Phillips does up there. The
GM and the head coach report to Ted.
Right.
Okay, but generally speaking, he lets the football people do what the football people want to do, what they think is the best overall for the organization. Now, he can put a veto on a contract that he doesn't like, and Ted used to go back years ago. Ted used to negotiate the contracts before Cliff was brought in, and actually there was another guy, his name was Miller, before Cliff. He was here for a few years, but before that, Ted was the chief negotiator and did all the contracts, got a lot of experience with it, and he's a very, very tough negotiator. But his overall job, his main job when I first came here was to get that stadium built,
right?
Which he did. And, he left the football stuff to Jerry Angelo. I don't, just in my experience, I don't think Ted Phillips is going anywhere. Now, you could say, should they bring in a football czar? Well, that's what the GM's supposed to be. And so if you don't have a strong enough GM and you don't like the job that the GM's doing, then maybe you make a change with the GM. And maybe it's not both go, maybe one goes. And that's going to be ownership's decision. And Ted's probably going to have something to do with that too. And that, okay, you know what? Ryan, we don't like what Ryan has done. We like Matt as the head coach, but we got to draft better. We got to do better in free agency. So we're going to bring in another general manager. The problem you have with that is that neither the head coach and the GM really know each other, and you don't have that marriage. But hey, it's worked before. It could work again. It's just not the smoothest type of relationship that you want.
Yeah, more often than not, when you bring in a new general manager, he may keep that coach around for at best a year. Eventually, bringing in somebody that he's aligned with himself. That's just the fact.
I think I've been through that at Hellas Hall.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. All right, so
it was with Dick Duran.
Yeah,
we came in 2001, and because we came in June, we were told we had to keep Dick. And then actually Dick then went. We went 13-3 that next year, and Dick got an extension out of it.
All right. When the Bears won the Super Bowl, obviously a long time ago in '85, the architect overall of that team was Jim Finks, who George Halas turned everything over to. I think he came in '83, if I'm not mistaken, maybe '82. Anyway, if you were the McCaskies and you wanted to go out and get a quote-unquote football czar, help me out here. What names are you looking around the NFL landscape who would fit that kind of persona?
Well, first of all, David, it's the setup of an organization is so much different now than it was when Jim Finks was here. And I'll go back to when I was working for the Giants. Our offices were in the old Giants Stadium. Football operations took up most of the space. Your salespeople, PR people, those types of things, there was a handful. And that was the same thing around the league. Now you got more people on the business end than you have on the football end because it's become big business. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. And I don't think it's possible to have, to bring in a guy that's going to oversee both sides and have the knowledge to do that. Okay, the job that Ted has to do, overseeing really the financial end of the football team, that sponsorship, advertising, everything, that's a huge job now. Selling seats, selling those suites. It's that is a job by itself. And I just think that it's impossible to bring in a person that can do both. Now, in the Giants case, because I'm very familiar with that organization, the general manager handles the football end, and then John Mara, who is the owner, handles the business end, and
right.
then along with Stephen Tisch.
Right.
They each have a delegated way of doing things.
Who knows? Maybe if nothing else, maybe there's a reshuffling in the organization, and they I don't know. Maybe they do something because. But
like I just want to say that what the whole point I was trying to make is that to go back to the early '80s when Jim Finks was here, it's just an entirely different way of doing it. The league is just blown up so much in that 30-something years that it's impossible to have one guy that has expertise to cover both.
Okay, duly noted. All right, last week I gave you a little bit of a homework assignment, or I should say earlier.
Yeah, but that's for next Monday.
Oh, okay.
Because I haven't done it yet.
I can't bring up Trevor Lawrence.
You said we're going to talk about it Monday, so I put it on the back burner to say.
Okay, fair enough. There might be so much to talk about. Who knows? There might not even be a game on Sunday to have it.
I know, that's right. We might be putting out the podcast on Thursday and Friday of next week. For all we know.
All right. Well, I'll just bring this up casually then, because everything is pretty arbitrary when it comes to rankings and ratings of things. But, I took a look at a lot of different quarterback ratings for college. And obviously Trevor Lawrence is number one. Justin Field, we talked about him in the past. He's number two. Zach Wilson from BYU, and I haven't seen anything of him, but he's number three. Trey Lance, who played that one game. We talked about him earlier this season from North.
Let me ask you this. Where are you getting these, quote, ratings?
I just, again, they're so arbitrary that I don't put totals.
I know. The thing, Wilson, he's an interesting guy for some people, but then they go out, BYU doesn't play the strongest schedule, at least the level of comp that, they're an independent. They used to be in the WAC, and then now they're an independent. And they had a struggle to find games this year, but the level of comp that they're playing is not that good. Last week, they come east and play Coastal Carolina, which is a lower level of the division. It's like playing a MAC team. And they got their asses handed to them. Now, was it all his fault? No. But you just got to be careful when you're looking at guys like that, and you can't just look at the numbers because who they're playing against. And that brings up the North Carolina State guy. Played one game against a shitty team, another FBS level team this year, a one-game schedule. He played very, very average in that game, and you're going to take him in the first round off. And basically what you're doing is taking him off of what he did in 2019. That's Mitch Trubisky all over again. Right. To me, that is a very dangerous thing to do. I'm not saying the guy's not talented. And again, I haven't studied him, but I know the one game he had to prepare for one game and very, very average in that game. In fact, a disappointment. The next time you're going to see him play, if he plays, because if they hold the game, is a senior role.
Right. All right. Aldo's reminding everybody, included, that we will answer questions that people have. Aldo will throw them up on the screen here at the tail end of the podcast, and Greg and I, specifically Greg, will answer them. Again, I'll ask you again on Monday about Kyle Trask, but just in general, he was not at the top of these quarterback ratings, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And anything else. So
you always have a guy that jumps out of nowhere every year. In fact, the guy who did that 4 years ago was Mitch Trubisky. Nobody heard of Mitch Trubisky going into that year. And then he started having a big year at North Carolina, became the hot name.
I'd have to go back and see what his senior year or whatever that year was for him because, Kyle Trask right now has got 38 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. I don't think Mitch Trubisky was putting up numbers like that.
He didn't end up. But what I'm saying is, David, is he became on these, quote, draftnik lists. And the problem with those lists is that, the NFL people aren't going to tell you who they like. And some of these guys tell you, I got this from a GM. Bullshit. No GM's going to tell you anything. And if he does tell you something, he's lying because he doesn't want to show his cards of who he likes and who he doesn't like.
Yeah. Aldo's throwing up on the screen that Trask threw for 433 yards and 4 touchdowns against Tennessee. He's basically doing that on a weekly basis. And, if nothing else, Greg, and again, I'm a layman, I admit it, he's doing it in a really good football conference against good competition.
No question the SEC is good.
Yeah, and they're going to go against Alabama in the Southeast Conference title game. Now, if he does something like that in an SEC title game against Alabama and knocks them off, that's another feather in his hat.
Absolutely. And then you're going to really take notice of this guy. Yeah. And I promise that by Monday, I'm going to have a bunch of stuff done on him. Okay, fair enough. All right, let's take a look at the rest of the NFL. We got some stuff to talk about college, specifically the Big Ten and Ohio State, but we'll get to that in a moment. The game's on Sunday. Don't get me going on that. I think
I am going to get you going.
I think that's the biggest wuss thing going. That at the end of the season, the Big Ten changes the rules to try to make sure. It's bullshit. It's still bullshit. The Big Ten championship game should be Indiana against Northwestern. Ohio State has not played enough games. They had the rules at the beginning of the year, and now at the end of the year, they're going to say, well, I guess we're changing because we think Ohio State's better. Ohio State's only played one team worth of shit, and that's Indiana. Indiana should beat them.
Okay, but you know why. We both know why.
I know why. I don't agree with it.
Okay.
And I hope the College Football Playoff Committee sticks it up their ass and doesn't let them in the playoff. They don't deserve to be in the playoff playing 4 games.
Well, they'll probably be in the playoffs on top of it, but we'll see. Well, listen, Northwestern has a chance to knock them off, and if that's the case, then the whole conversation is moot. But we'll see. We'll get to that in a moment. Green Bay and Detroit on Sunday. Green Bay 9-3. The Lions got their win against the Bears, probably riding high this week. They're going down in flames on Sunday.
No question.
Okay, Minnesota, which has won 5 of 6. This is an interesting game, Greg, because I agree with you. I'm not impressed by Tampa Bay, and every time I've seen Tom Brady, every other game he's putting up numbers, but when I see him on TV or in person like we did at Soldier Field, he definitely is showing his age. So this is going to be an interesting game.
Where's the game being played?
It's in Tampa.
In Tampa. I'm going to go with Tampa because it's in Tampa. And you are going to have some fans there. Minnesota's hot and cold. They've been hot lately, but they don't always look good doing it. And a lot of pressure on Tampa. I tell you, if Tampa loses this game, it's all over for them.
I agree with that. All right, speaking of hot and cold, Tennessee, 8-4, Jacksonville 1-11. Now, Jacksonville obviously stinks. Tennessee is hot and cold, but if they lose this game, something's really wrong. So I think they win this game.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Okay, and then Jacksonville is here very shortly afterwards. A couple of 4-8 teams. There's a lot of games that, listen, you almost hope they do get canceled because they're boring. Denver at Carolina. This is a boring game. They're both 4-8.
Carolina.
Okay. Yeah, a couple of teams that you really like. Dallas at 3. What are they? 3-9. Oh, Jesus, we're worse than I thought. Cincinnati 2-9-1. Cincinnati, obviously, their season was over as soon as Burrow went down.
Right, but Dallas, did you watch their game the other night? How bad that defense is? Their defense, it's pathetic. And too bad our buddy Mike McCartney gets hit so bad after those games because they all think he's Mike McCarthy. You know what? I'm going to go with Cincinnati because Dallas is awful.
Yeah, I think they folded their tent, even though they're in the rotten division. And good, we'll talk about that division in a couple seconds here, but even Dallas has fallen off the pace there. This is a good game. Kansas City 11-1, Miami 8-4. I think Kansas City took their foot off the gas the other night against Denver, but now they got some tough games. Kansas City, by the way, now tied with Pittsburgh. Both have the same records in the AFC. They're still the best team in football, in my opinion, although they have warts. This will be a good game. Kansas City at Miami on Sunday.
Yeah, but I think Tua is going to be playing quarterback, and Tua against Mahomes is no contest. Miami's pulled some games out that I've been questioning how they do it, but Kansas City's a better team.
Fair enough. Arizona 6-6, falling like a rock in water. The Giants 5-7, tied for the division lead at 5-7. The game's in it's in New Jersey.
Giants are coming on. In fact, there was an article the other day that said that the Giants could be a losing team in the playoffs and could give some people some trouble. Their defense is really starting to play strong.
How about this? The Bears could go on and say that they beat a playoff team if the Giants get into the playoffs.
That's right.
Not much of a claim to fame. Indianapolis 8-4, Vegas 7-5. This is almost like an elimination game for Vegas if they lose.
It might be an elimination for the Colts too. Colts have not played good.
No, they've been another up and down team.
Yeah. Where's that game at?
It's in Vegas.
I'm going to still go with the Colts. I just, I got a soft spot for the Colts because of Chris Ballard.
I know you do. Okay. I don't know what the point spread in this game is. It's got to be lopsided. The Jets 0-12 at Seattle, and Seattle's coming off a couple of stinkers here recently, but Seattle's still 8-4.
And who's coordinating the defense now for the Jets? Obviously, Seattle.
Yeah, agreed. Another stinker game, Atlanta and Los Angeles against the Chargers. Couple of teams way under 500.
Chargers.
New
Chargers
Orleans
were awful last week, and their coach is obviously going to get canned at the end of the season, but I just like them.
Okay, another lopsided game, at least on paper. New Orleans, which has won 9 in a row. They're at Philadelphia. Carson Wentz has gone to the bench. What the hell happened with this kid?
I don't know. He has not really played good. Remember when he tore his ACL against the Rams? What was it? The year they were in the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
And then Nick Foles had to take over. He has not played good football since he tore his ACL.
I agree. He was riding high, and then he's fallen off. Washington with our good buddy Ron Rivera. Happy for him. Coming off a huge win at Pittsburgh, by the way. They're at San Francisco. This is a big game, obviously, for Washington. Goes without saying.
Yeah, and San Francisco got their rear ends handed to them by Buffalo. And actually, that game's not in San Francisco. It's in Arizona.
That's right. It's in Arizona. That's right.
And so there's really no home field advantage there. It's a road game for both. But I think San Francisco is a better team. But I'll tell you what, Buffalo, I don't know if you saw any of that game Sunday night. Buffalo really looked good.
Buffalo did look good. But Washington's playing San Francisco. Buffalo is at home.
But Buffalo looked really good against San Francisco.
Yes, they did. Yeah. They did. All right. Well, anyway, let's get back to Buffalo. They're at home. It's a Sunday night game. This is a good game. Pittsburgh 11-1, Buffalo 9-3. I'm going to go with the Bills.
Yeah, I think you're right. The Steelers got no rushing game right now. And so if you can get some pressure on Roethlisberger, you got a chance. And, he's not getting any younger. Josh Allen looked just superb. That might have been his best game as a pro. He's had better games statistically this year. But that game against San Francisco on Sunday night, he was just tremendous. Okay,
and then the Monday night game, and who knows, there might be more than one Monday night game when it's all said and done because of COVID. But as of right now, this is a good game. Baltimore 7-5 at Cleveland 9-3. I told you that Tomlin was not going to be the coach of the year. The Cleveland coach is going to be the coach of the year.
Kevin Stefanski. See, we got the name right this time. I think Cleveland's going to win that game. I think Baltimore's starting to go south.
Yeah, agreed. All right, and we're going to get back just so I can get your dander up one more time. We'll go back to college. I'm going to be at the Northwestern Illinois game on Saturday, so I'm looking forward to that. Unfortunately, I think Lovey's going to have one more loss on his record after Saturday. But then it will be Ohio State and Northwestern in the Big Ten title game. Do you want to rant a little bit more before we get out of here?
No, I just think that they changed the rules late in the game to try to make sure the conference gets the best team who the conference perceives as the best team. I'm not sure Ohio State is as good as people are making them out to be, only because they have. I mean, Indiana is a good team and they've played really good this year, but Indiana almost knocked them off, and Indiana isn't in the same class with Notre Dame, Clemson, and Alabama. Ohio State maybe, if they beat Northwestern, first of all, I hope, because of the circumstances, that Northwestern kicks the shit out of them. But I just don't like that whole scenario that they set up. It's bullshit.
Yeah, well, I mean, 2020, I always preface with saying 2020 has just made a calamity out of everything.
We'll just make up the rules. There's another thing today. How about this? LSU gets caught with a bunch of recruiting violations, so they self-impose penalties that, okay, we won't go to we'll self-impose and not go to a bowl game this year. They weren't going anyway.
That's right.
So what's the penalty? There is no penalty.
It's just hypocrisy, of course, across the board. All right, look, here's a scenario. I hope it doesn't happen, but here's a scenario. What happens if they set up, finally, they get through the conference championships, whoever wins whatever, they go to the bowl games, they go to the semifinals, what have you, and then COVID strikes yet again, and all of a sudden these teams can't play. What are they going to do then?
Not play. What else can you? Yeah, what can you do? What are they going to do? Put the game back 3 weeks?
No.
I just don't see that happening.
And the same thing obviously could happen. Let's hope that this vaccination thing kicks in. And you know what? I'll get on my preacher board here or whatever. Everybody needs to take. Hopefully, this vaccination is proven to be good. The vaccine, rather, and everybody should take it, because if they don't, we'll be in this thing even longer. But the only thing is, though, it's like the flu shot, and I don't want to get political, obviously. I get a flu shot every year, but there's different strains of the flu. That's right.
That come along every year, and they got to change whatever the vaccination is, whatever the drugs are that's in the flu shot. They're going to have to do the same thing with COVID.
Likely, and that you're right. It's outside my domain, so maybe I should just shut up. I want to get past this whole pandemic thing, and whatever it takes to get through it, sports and everything else. If the vaccine is going to help this society and this world get through it, then I'm 100% an advocate of that. But again, the same thing could happen in the NFL, Greg. Just like we talk. I mean, what are they going to do? Move these games back? Yeah, same thing can happen in the NFL in the playoffs or the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. And I just think they end up not playing.
Yeah, it's really, really strange. That's why I'm preaching what I'm preaching. Anyway, all right, let's just say the Bears and Houston play on Sunday. We were both wrong. We both picked the Bears to beat Detroit, and we turned out to be wrong. The Bears and Houston, all things equal, what happens in the game on Sunday?
Houston by 7.
Okay, I'm not going to.
I'm hoping that the defense shows up after the last 2 weeks. If they don't, we got some big problems.
Yeah. All right. If there's any questions for Greg and or myself, and here we go. This is from Dented Fender. How much influence, Greg, does scouts have in choosing players? How does that whole process work?
Well, that's going to change from team to team. When I was there, the scouts had a lot of influence. I mean, you have meetings in December. We had meetings, usually it was around this week in December, and we'd cut the list. And then you had more meetings for about 10, 12 days prior to the combine, and you'd pare down the list even more. And then you'd have your final meetings leading up to the draft. We'd end the meetings about 3 or 4 days before the draft. And again, as you pare down the list, but we wanted the scouts to have a strong say. And we put a lot of emphasis into what they said. Now, there's other teams, and there's one team I worked for as a consultant. What the scouts said, I don't think it meant shit. They didn't put as much credit into what the scouts thought as what management and the coaching staff did. And I didn't, like that situation working there. When I was with the Giants, what the scouts said was gospel. And generally speaking, a lot of the teams that put a lot of emphasis in their scouts' opinion, if you've got strong scouts, that's the key. You got to have strong staff. Those teams do well.
All right, let me just ask you on draft day, draft night, the Bears or whoever that you're working for is on the clock. Are you in that draft room with them? Are you in the next room? Are you a phone call away just in case they want a last-second word on a certain player? How does that work?
When we were there, the scouts, me and Jerry and the head coach were in the draft room. That's it.
Ooh, that's a whole podcast in itself. I want to hear how that works.
Okay, so and we discussed the players, but you don't make decisions on draft night. Your decisions are made prior to that. You put it, and it's similar to preparing for a game. You put together a game plan, and that's what the meetings leading up to the draft are for. Your board is set, and there's certain players that you want, and we used to go through different scenarios. We'd want player A, player B, player C, player D. We want this guy in the first round, this guy in the second round, this guy in the third round, this guy in the fourth round, based on what our rankings were. And you went into a draft thinking that was going to be, the best case scenario for the team. But in going into a draft, and I think I've said this before, you have to prepare for the worst case scenario. And that's what if your guy, and you're going to have more than one guy. You're going to have, 3 or 4 guys, and you're going to prioritize those guys. But if all those guys are gone, you got to have a fallback plan. And if you don't have it and you're not ready for it, you're in deep shit.
Yeah. All right. Here's a question from Jamie Silverberg. He wants to know, do you think Peyton Manning would be a good head of football operations?
No, he's never done it. You put these guys in, they've never done it, and they're supposed to have all the answers. Come on, give me a freaking break. It takes time. In scouting, it takes time. Experience is everything. And there's a lot of these guys, these smart young guys that supposedly have all the answers. Bullshit.
Okay. Here's one from Ravi Komak. I guess that's how you may pronounce it. He wants to know, Greg, why do bad teams seem to pick a wide receiver high? I haven't noticed that, but, have you?
Wide receivers, I'm going to say over the last 7-8 years have gone really high. Not obviously it depends on the strength of the class at that position, but in today's game, wide receivers are game breakers, and so they can make a difference to your team. So that's why, and I'm not going to say that it's teams that take wide receivers high are terrible teams, but there was a time. In fact, the year we took Sed Benson, 3 running backs went in the top 5. And that was par for the course for running backs in that era of football. Okay, that's ended. Now you're lucky if you get one running back go in the first round because of the value of the position. Wide receivers didn't go as high back then, but now they're a game-breaking position. So you got to look. Personally, I'm a meat and potatoes guy. I'd rather take an offensive and defensive lineman and then fill in after that.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the Bears better start looking to fortify that offensive line going forward. All right.
They have to.
Here's one from Brummy Bear. He's asking, how would Greg scheme to contain Watson on Sunday, taking into account the defense's last 2 performance? Basically, what is your game plan against Deshaun Watson on Sunday?
Keep him in the pocket. Don't let him run. Make plays with his feet. And then you got to cover strong.
All right, fair enough. Any other questions? Let's see. How excited, he's asking both of us, how excited are we for the upcoming bowl season? Well, I'm always excited. I'm a basketball junkie.
You're a basketball fan. That's your question.
Yeah, I'm a basketball junkie. I mean, the best you can hope for the Bulls is 500. I don't think they'll even be that good. But in answering your question, it's a one-year learning experience for the new management. They've made very few changes to their roster. They'll probably make some trades halfway through the season by the trading deadline. I don't think Otto Porter will be here all season. Thomas Satoransky might not be here all season. Patrick Williams, who they drafted, obviously with the number 4 pick, will slowly but surely move his way into the rotation. But again, don't expect too much out of the Bulls this upcoming season. All right, thank you for all the questions. We appreciate it. Greg, thank you again for joining us here again today.
And I'll do my homework over the weekend.
Please do, and hopefully there is a game. Again, Hallis Hall closed today because one of the players tested positive. Hopefully it's a precautionary thing. Hopefully the game comes off on Sunday, and hopefully we will be back sometime late Monday morning with our analysis of Sunday's game. So, Greg, thank you, and have yourself a great weekend.
You too, my friend.
All right, take care, everybody.
Okay, guys.